They say my generation full of dough. We tell them thanks, this is our year. But on the real, they saying slow your roll. As if we don't, we gonna die, but we like it. They don't know what life is. My homie, if he heading to the party, we like it. And that poison be pricey, and they gon' get you hyphy. But if you ain't throwing down, then stay at home with your wife. And straight out the bottle.
All right, we just wrapped up filming at Freya. Shane and I just talked to Sandy Levine. He's the owner here at Freya. It's a beautiful spot here in the Milwaukee Junction. It's fine dining, all the wines you could imagine. Check out this kitchen over here, open kitchen concept right here. He just goes from where he started to how he got to here. And honestly, it's a great conversation. If you're listening for a little business insight, some laughs, and then a little bit of Detroit culture, you gotta listen in. This is a great conversation. Kopy did his thing. Ace, you did your thing. So listen in. Let's get into it. So we're Off the Block Presents, and you're our first episode. So episode 1, people probably know Freya, but they probably don't know who we are, what we are. So we're just a podcast that's going to be telling, the untold stories, the challenges, the ups and downs of the restaurant industry. And really this came from a love of Detroit and a love of hospitality. So really we want to dig in and get to know a little bit more about your place, but we're going to be going all around Detroit.
Nice.
So co-host Shane Kopy.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here.
Really how we want to get this kicked off is having you, Sandy, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey in the hospitality industry, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So my parents divorced when I was 7, and they each, got remarried shortly after they divorced. And my dad married a woman whose family had a deli out in the suburbs. And so there was, I wanted money of my own. I was, when I started working at that deli, they basically let me wash dishes.
Okay.
So I was 11 when I started there, and I just wanted. There was something that I asked for, and my parents were like, "No, I'm not buying that for you," And I was like, "Well, how I want it." And they're like, "Well, you got to get a job."
Yeah.
And so I was very, very fortunate to be able to just walk into that place on Saturdays for a few hours when they weren't busy, and it was kind of like pretending like I had a job.
Okay.
I had to stand on the glass racks just to reach the counter and all that, But I loved it. It was like, immediately when I first started working there, I thought it was, at 11, I was like,
yeah, are 11-year-olds even allowed to work anymore?
Definitely not. I think there's a law that says that if your family owns the business or something like that,
it's a legal loophole. It's a legal loophole.
This happened a long, long time ago. Yeah. So hopefully the statute of limitations is
gone. I think we moved past.
So anyway, I was able to save money, but working in the dish pit there, I don't know. It was the act of like having people just dump a mountain of things for you to like take care of and fix. Basically, I got really into that aspect of just like being good at being a dishwasher, and being able to never get overwhelmed even when the dish pit is just has dishes stacked what was above my head. And being able to knock that out really quick. And then, even more so and to a stronger degree, just the camaraderie in a restaurant kitchen and within a whole restaurant staff was just, for me, it was just intoxicating. And, of course, they had to be nice to me. I think as I got older, I started to realize that, who the people that probably resented, a kid being in their workplace, which was, certainly understandable and justified.
I've been there.
And then, conversely, like there were other people that totally embraced me. And, as I worked my way through other stations and, jobs in that deli.
So where do you go from there? Where do you go from dishwasher? What's like the next job? What's getting promoted?
So yeah, I went from dishwasher. I think after that, I was a host.
Okay.
And then became a server assistant or busser. And then I went back to dishwashing.
Yeah.
and then serving,
Okay.
and eventually managing and ownership. But
So a dish pit, is that a common restaurant term, or is that your term? I've never heard that before.
I think it's pretty common.
Is it pretty common?
Among inside
like
the
it.
industry? Yeah.
yeah.
The dish pit is what people refer to as the dishwashing area.
I like that.
There's typically an automatic dishwasher where you load like you would at home, but it only takes like a minute instead of however long your home one takes.
Yeah.
And then there's a 3-compartment sink for the giant pots and pans and stuff like that we have to manually wash. But yeah, that whole area is usually referred to as the dish pit.
Nice. I
So,
like it.
kind of, was the first place you opened called the Oakland?
Yes.
I was reading. Okay, so maybe jump us through like how many more jobs do you have until you get that that itch and that
Sure.
entrepreneur bug to open that place? Like, are you working multiple places, or you go straight from the deli and you go, you know what, now I'm going to take the jump and open my own place?
No, there was a couple decades in between those two things. So
it's from 11 to 30 something then.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So, I worked through high school, obviously. When I went to college, I had to work through college as well. So, the easiest transition was just to serve somewhere.
Okay.
So in college, I worked at places like Pizza Hut and TGI Fridays and, corporate places like that as a server. And then when I graduated college, I went to Kalamazoo College and got a psychology degree. Had no idea what I wanted to do when I got out. So I moved back in with my dad and stepmom and just started serving again. And, I was a really good server, and I did pretty well financially. So, after a few months, I was able to, rent a house and served for several years. I made a good living. It was easy for me. It was something I really, really enjoyed.
Comfortable doing.
Yeah. And, I think for a while it was kind of like I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And after maybe about a decade of serving, I was like, this is kind of what I'm good at. And if I haven't found anything else that I have any real interest in doing, maybe this is what I should do,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So I think that kind of coincided with me learning about fine dining and tasting menus and stuff like that. So I think I just naturally got into management. So when I was my last serving job that I had was for McCormick and Schmick's, which is no longer in Michigan, I don't think, but it's a chain, and they've had they've done a great job over the years. There's a lot of things that I took from them, but they had a management opening, and I pushed really hard to do it because I think I was one of the top servers there, and I just wanted to learn more about that aspect. It's just kind of like, I think when you love an industry, you just want to continually learn about it.
Yeah.
Indefinitely. And I think that's kind of why I went into management.
Makes sense. Do you think your psychology degree helps you in the restaurant industry? Because I do think there's things to that. Like, I've heard like restaurants will put red in their restaurants because something psychological, red makes you hungry. I don't know if that's a real thing, but I've heard that. Like, have you used any of that, or are you just like, I got a degree that hasn't done
Well,
much?
I would say unquestionably I have used my degree and probably do on a daily basis, in terms of how I operate and how I, help to run our places, in an immeasurable amount of different ways. But, the color thing, I don't think that was a huge focus on my education.
Yeah.
I will say my mom was an interior designer for many, many years.
Gotcha.
And usually when when we're doing like, if we're building a new place or if I have design questions, I ask her those things.
For sure.
Specifically because she knows what each color means.
Yeah.
What goes for my house.
What were some of the best and worst jobs among those 2 decades? Like, do you remember one like this one hated, or this one, that was actually pretty cool?
Yeah.
Like, if someone wants to get their foot in the door and like, I'm going to start getting in this business, like, what are ones like,
I'll say like one of the regrets, and I don't know if I really say it's a full-on regret, but one of the the things that I wish I would have done sooner was to like take a quote unquote like lower level job at a nicer place rather than, I think I was kind of the opposite when I was young. Is like I was afraid to carry a tray, so I didn't apply at any places that carried trays for probably like 3 or 4 years. And then when I finally did, within the restaurant industry, I could probably name like 6 or 7 names who worked at that one restaurant where people's jaw would be like, oh my God, you got to work with those people? And I was like, yeah, that was my trainer. That was the som. The som that worked at that restaurant was the first female master som in America.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the learning experience that I had there was just unreal.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that I waited years to go there because I was afraid to
For sure.
spend 2 days learning how to carry a tray, you know, is ridiculous. So, you know, in terms of like bad jobs that I've had, they all relate to your direct superior, right? So,
so it's more of a relationship thing that makes it shitty versus
I think so.
like,
Yeah. I mean, you know, the boss that I had at the Pizza Hut that I worked at college, I tell stories about him.
like positive ones?
No.
No, shitty ones.
I have no idea what this
we got
guy's
it.
name was. This is 30 years ago. So I don't remember the guy's name. I just remember
You got a good story for us?
how I felt. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, first of all, it was just not run well. You know, there was the thing that was kind of like the light bulb in my head where I was like, this guy knows nothing, and this place, I can't be in this place anymore. We had 2 sections for the whole Pizza Hut. It was me and one other server, and the system that they had was to just take turns. So, you know, in theory, like I could get a table of 2 and the other server could get a table of 12, and I could get another table of 2 and he could get a party of 6, and I could get another table of 2 and he could get a party of 8. All these tables are all over the restaurant, so we're just crisscrossing constantly and, you know, frazzled. And
you're getting less tips too here, no?
right,
If you're serving.
Yeah, I could barely get people's orders.
By the way, how much did Pizza Hut slap in the 90s? What
I mean,
happened?
dude,
They fall off
the
so
salad
hard.
bar and the pizza bar,
Oh,
like
yeah,
all
the
those
bar-
things.
That was my childhood. Like everyone,
used
I
to
think
go nuts
everyone's
about it, yeah.
childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone,
The
what the hell
breadsticks?
happened?
I feel like I saw something about them bringing those things back.
They should.
I don't know if it was just a rumor or not, but
You go
anyway,
up to little,
you know, like
play music there.
Everybody in this restaurant, like during the shift, was just every table that we each had probably 13 tables, and you know, for a restaurant section, most sections are like maybe 5 or 6 tables for single server service or whatever.
Yeah.
And the guy, the manager guy was like running around, sweating and like frazzled. And every time somebody would complain, he'd be like, "These guys just our servers just don't know what they're doing." Really,
So it was
just
never his
totally
fault.
throw us under the bus.
Just, it's all you guys.
So
and
he
we're
sucked.
running around like trying to stay above water and keep the restaurant going and all that. So that was an example of like something that it was like a core memory in my career that I was like, I am not ever going to operate this way.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, you're here now, and even just looking at this place, I feel like you've taken some of that, like with your tables and how they're set up. Like it's just like that you've learned a lot. Like
Yeah,
and that
I mean,
makes sense.
I think like, you know, good and bad, you know, you take from those things that are.
Now the good. What's the good one? We got shitty Pizza Hut guy.
So the thing that if you ask a staff member what job experience I talk about the most, it's definitely Davio's in Philadelphia. It's a Northern Italian steakhouse. And the people that I worked with there, again, going back to like my direct superior there was this guy named Ettore Sarasso, who came up at the Fountain Restaurant, which is inside the Four Seasons Hotel in Philadelphia. So it's like arguably the best restaurant in Philadelphia for many, many years. He started there as a busser when he was like a teenager and worked his way all the way up to maitre d'. And ran that restaurant for several years, and then ended up opening Davio's. They have several Davio's now, but at the time there was one in Boston and one in Philly. And when I say like probably over 90% of the staff would have taken a bullet for him, like that's literal.
Nice.
And I think, you know, it's because of how he treated everybody else. I think he just genuinely cared about his staff more than anybody else I'd ever worked for. And most of the decisions that I make are really just kind of like, how would he operate sort of thing.
That's cool. And Sandy, the reason we have this podcast is for that exactly. It's like you see this place, and when you come into this place and you see how spectacular it is, it's not that you just did it and woke up and were like, I'm going to do it. You have a road and a story and jobs and ups and downs to get to it. So maybe that first place. So now you've done all these jobs. Maybe tell us, and again, I know we talked a little bit off camera about willingness to talk about, money and how much things cost or this and that. But now you've done all these jobs. You're saying, I'm going to open the Oakland now. How much money does a person need to save up after all these years? Or and take us through your process that you did when you started getting into that. I'm going to open this place.
I don't know. I kind of consider myself
maybe.
like a really glorified server, and that's kind of like, that was my background. So, my wife and I spent a short time in Chicago. It happened to be around the same time that a bar called the Violet Hour opened. So that was a huge inspiration for the Oakland. We talked to people that were involved in the Violet Hour, and they kind of helped me write, the business plan and answered a lot of questions. They were very, very gracious. And so that business plan was like, I was writing that for like 3 years. I would tell people that I wanted to open my own place. And I literally just like walked into banks, like just branches, and asked for the manager and asked for, a lot of money.
You're working for like a $500,000, $1 million budget, multi-million-dollar budget.
So this was like bare bones.
Right.
Basically, the process first was like, I had the general business plan. I was looking for spaces for years. And there were several spaces that didn't work out. There was a couple that we would really, really wanted and fell through.
In Ferndale?
No, most of them are in Detroit, actually. And the final one that we really thought this is where our place was going to be, we ended up getting outbid. And the owner who was trying to sell this space, we were actually looking to buy. He basically just told us we sold. Sorry, and it was really, really devastating.
To another restaurant?
To another person, yeah. And I was really, really devastated. I kind of just was like, I give up. I'm not.
Hasn't even started. You gave up.
And I was like, it wasn't forever, but I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to start this whole process over again. So I just waited and went back to work. And one of the real estate agents that I had talked to, who showed me a different space like 2 years before, just randomly called me. He was like, I have a space opening up in Ferndale. If you're interested, let me know. We went and looked at it, and we were like, this would be really good.
We lived there together for a few years back in Ferndale.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I still live close.
I've lived with him for like 10 years of my life, on my 30 years. Maybe 15. Maybe 15. But
we're brothers from another mother.
So where in Ferndale?
So it's downtown Ferndale. It used to be Nami Sushi.
Okay.
And we took it over. It's right next to Soho.
I've been a ton.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Oh, nice.
I love it. Yeah. We're how long has it been there?
15 years.
Has it been that long? Yeah.
This summer.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been to the Oakland?
Yeah, plenty of times.
Yeah, no,
it's a little like speakeasy type vibe, which I love that. I think, does it say like something about like art novelty on it or something?
So the name, the art novelty company was a fake business that the Purple Gang had. When we opened, we were like, kind of like a modern speakeasy. We've since sort of ditched like the speakeasy aspect of it.
I've noticed it's been a little more like open.
Yeah, we're not like trying to be like
not trying to
secret
hide
or anything.
Yeah.
But the art novelty company was a fake business that the Purple Gang used as for a return address for when they shipped cases of alcohol during Prohibition.
That's cool. I never knew that. And honestly, like when I first started going there, I remember the first time I tried to go, and I was like, "Oh, the art novelty company. This isn't it."
Right.
I was like, I can't find. I was like, I know it's a speakeasy, but this is a different company. This is an art place. But then I learned. But that's awesome.
So when we opened, it was a process of like going around to banks. One of them was like, all right, you're good. This is what you need. You got to come up with like 55% for the down payment.
Yeah.
And this is after we signed the lease. Like we love the space. We signed the lease. Right when I signed, my wife was like super, super excited. And I was like, I made a terrible mistake. I can't believe we did this. What are we going to do? So then it was kind of like hightailing, like I had to find money. I think we had about 50,000 saved of our own money. And that purchased the liquor license at the time.
Yeah.
And then we had to come up with about another $50,000 to make that down payment. The down payment was basically like, it wasn't a down payment. It was basically we had to prove we spent that much before they loaned us the rest of the money.
Gotcha.
And so the way we got the rest of the money was like my parents took a home equity line of credit out on their house, and it was in their name, but I paid it every month. It was like an auto pay or whatever, and that was kind of like a loan payment. They loaned me that gap money or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we were able to secure the loan after a lot of problems and headaches. The one bank that sort of like gave us a pre-approval the very, very last minute, like shortly before we were supposed to close on the loan, they were like, by the way, you need $50,000 more. And so I had to start that process all over again. Like when you talk about like blood, sweat, and tears, like there was absolutely that. And I can get into the blood later, but
that's tough.
it was frustrating. So then, I had to start the process over again. There was a banker named Tom Vandermeer that I just took a chance and was like, this is what you need. And so we were able to get that money and open. So the total startup cost is a long answer to your question, but
but it gives you the process and like where to approach, and that it's not to your point, it's not like a one person thing. It's like, I'm going to walk in a bank, it's going to happen. It's a relentless pursuit just to even get started before you even have anything.
Yeah.
So
I had 24 appointments with different banks and stuff.
So the banks know you.
Most of them are like, we don't do that. Restaurants, really. So it was a lot, but I think the total startup cost for the Oakland was, and this was in 2010, 2011, was like just over 200,000, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
But
and do you still own the Oakland and everything?
Yeah, we don't own the building. We've been renting.
You own the building?
No.
Okay.
We rent that space.
So, and that's actually might be jumping around a little bit, but I was reading in some of the articles, like you have the entities of your business and you own this building, correct?
This building that we're in for Freya.
Those are separate entities, correct?
All of our places are separate.
Yeah. And that's honestly one of the interesting things, I think, as an informative, hospitality podcast, is like, how do people structure that? Maybe what's the benefit of that, keeping the restaurant and its revenues and the building separate? Like I found that interesting, I guess.
So I think,
is it taxes?
Yeah, it has to do with taxes in terms of like owning the building.
No, it's smart. I'm curious, but some people that are going to do it, they're going to be like, and this is our whole thing. But you want to maybe kind of shed some light on that. Like,
I mean, we have a landlord entity that's basically just a landlord for our business. So we pay ourselves rent
Freya
and
pays
all
that.
that.
Yeah. No, makes sense.
And for that one, I'm not super knowledgeable about like tax stuff like that.
No, nobody is.
Yeah, so I know, early on our accountant was just like, you need to set this up this way. And
that's smart.
How we did that. But
Kopy, what questions you got here?
Yeah, so then the Oakland happened.
Yeah.
So how many places do you own?
So we have the Oakland.
Yeah.
Chartreuse. Kitchen
Never
and cocktails.
been, but have you been? It's right here in Detroit.
That's downtown?
Yeah,
it's like
Chartreuse is
Midtown,
right
no?
next to the Detroit Institute of Arts.
Oh, nice.
And you won awards there as well.
We have, yeah. So we
This
opened
guy,
that
wherever he
in
goes, awards.
2015. We got Restaurant of the Year the following year. And it's gotten a lot of great accolades. I think, the specialty, the Chartreuse is like the more casual, kind of like shared plates, festive counterpoint to what Freya is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as refined and polished, but it's just a fun, festive, like bright, vibrant
Gotcha.
dining room. The food is, has that kind of brightness that we have here. But again, it's like kind of more shared plates. And
is it the one that has the big sign on the lit up sign outside of it?
They all have lit up signs.
It's like it's a large, I don't know, I forget what it says. I don't even know if that sign's there anymore. But
It's right off
so.
Woodward.
Yeah, I know the area, but
the sign just says Chartreuse.
Okay, it's not what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, no, we got to go though. I definitely want to check that place out.
Try it. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about.
Well, you were even talking about casual. Like for me here, Freya, for people that are interested in coming, it is casual. Like,
yeah,
but it's not at the same time. Like, I guess, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it is casual, but you're getting like this 5-star dining experience. So like, so I'll be interested to see how you define casual.
That's
like,
a good point. So,
because anyone's welcome here. I feel like you don't need to come up here and like dress to the nines,
right?
But also, it does have that feeling like this is a special night out, and you're gonna eat something special that you haven't had before. That was my take from when I came here last week and ate.
Yeah.
So it is special. It's like you come here like, hey man, we got an occasion. Let's come here.
Yeah, and so like Doug Hewitt is my business partner, and he kind of runs the back of the house. But when we were planning Freya, it was kind of based, like we really wanted to go as hard as we possibly could on, service and hospitality on my end and food on his end. And the kitchen at Chartreuse is really, really small. So there are a lot of limitations in terms of what he can do with that menu. Here we did the build out. So he can, he designed the kitchen with this in mind so that we could execute this kind of level of service and all that.
And you stay clear of that. You let him handle that aspect.
Yeah, we kind of do our own things because I think we have a very strong sort of mutual respect and
when did you
admiration.
meet Doug again? I think you told me.
I met him through a regular at the Oakland after we had looked at the space that became Chartreuse.
Gotcha.
One of our regulars is another business owner chef who was just a mutual friend that grew up with Doug, and Doug kind of, I think, sort of mentored a little bit in their younger years. Yeah. And when I asked him, he was kind of like, I have the perfect guy for you. So then my wife and I went out to Doug's restaurant, which is in Dexter, Michigan at the time. And like second or third course, we were there, and I sent my buddy a text and was like, holy shit.
This
is that
is
okay?
it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh
we
yeah.
swear.
Oh yeah.
Let it fly.
Fuck
baby.
yeah. It's great. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, I think like Freya, Doug and I did research, and that's like a great part of our job is we went to some of the top restaurants in the country, and, our takeaways, aside from like everybody deserves to have this kind of an experience, were that like in those dining rooms, we didn't really feel comfortable, and I think it was like those restaurants did amazing things in service and hospitality, and all of that, but like everybody was wearing a suit. If it was quiet, so like if we dropped our fork onto our plate and it made a noise, like we'd be really embarrassed.
Yeah, you have like the decorum and stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. So like, we wanted to have a place where like Detroiters would feel comfortable, but would still get that level of an experience. And so that's
you nailed it. Just from my experience, and you can tell. And one of the things I want to dig into is your staff is very knowledgeable of the product, the menu, the wines that you serve, and everything. By the way, thank you for the wines.
Yeah.
Hey, big thing, guys. That's why we started the podcast, so we can keep day drinking. It kind of falls out of style in your 30s. We're bringing it back.
Nice.
We're bringing it back. But no, what I was gonna say was, who does that training? Is that Doug? How does that work?
So the front of the house, we kind of like pre-opening for the maybe a couple weeks before we opened, we just went through every touch point that we could imagine in terms of anything the guest experiences that has to do with us. So going from how they find us to how they make a reservation to, what that looks like when they walk in the door and how they go to their table, like all of those little details we just kind of hammered out and talked about.
Are you training them though on that, or do you have a manager that goes through that? Are you and Doug being like, hey, we want it to be like this, and you're telling the individual, or is that coming from a manager and you're training the manager?
Well, I mean, so initially it was kind of collaborative. Like we talked with the whole front of the house about how to execute all of those points. We put that into, what became the manual, and that is given to staff members before they're hired.
Yeah.
And then, all of those things are just part of their training process. So they'll be trained by, first the GM, I'll communicate with them about, the big picture stuff, that we want to focus on and the most important things. And then, they train directly with servers.
Gotcha.
In terms of the front of the house. Back of the house is a whole different system that Doug operates, in his way. But most of that stuff is not that applicable to what the back of the house does, other than them just knowing what those steps are.
Okay. I got a lot more questions. Do you have anything that's popping out right now?
So
or I keep rolling.
we got a little. So Oakland Chartreuse.
Oh yeah.
This place. What else? Is that
So
it?
Freya is our our fine dining sort of like whatever. What do you call that?
Fine dining?
Yeah, well, it's sort of our version of modern fine dining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other side of the wall here, we have Dragonfly. So you'll notice there's
Cocktail
no bar in
Cocktail,
this
okay.
restaurant.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
we do, we have, obviously have wine service, but we also do cocktails and beer. Those are provided by the cocktail bar next
Gotcha.
door, which is Dragonfly. So that's sort of like the neighborhood component of Freya. Freya's, a destination restaurant, I think.
100%.
Where the vast majority of the people that come in here already have reservations. But we wanted to make sure that the neighborhood of the North End and Milwaukee Junction, we wanted to be a spot for the people that live right near us as well.
Yeah.
This place is popping off, by the way. Like, I've been looking on Horton Street, because I had renovated a place in North Corktown. I've been looking over here because down there it's starting to be way, overpriced. Right. But this is like a little secret for people that in Detroit, like Horton Street's starting to blow up, and there's a lot of good houses, renovation opportunity, and just it's becoming beautiful out here. This is like what Corktown was 5 years ago. You can start to see that development. So I say all that to ask you what goes into you picking a neighborhood in Detroit, whether it's Milwaukee Junction, whether it's, I know we're going to be opening a new place over here in Midtown, right?
And the Cass Corridor on 2nd and Forest will be our newest bar called Dirty Shake.
That's awesome. So what goes behind your thought process?
We definitely wanted to be in this area, and there in the same way that with all of our Chartreuse is the only exception to this, but all of our places we looked for a really long time for a space. We had several spaces that fell through. We had letters of intent for at least three different spaces that all fell through for what became Freya. And Milwaukee Junction.
Where were they at?
They were all in this general area.
In the same place.
I feel incredibly fortunate to be in this neighborhood.
Awesome.
The history in this area is just incredible, and the people that make this neighborhood what it is now are also incredible. So
you guys utilize that farm up the street at all for anything on your menu?
Yeah, we've used them.
It's beautiful.
The Underground Resistance, which we were talking about electronic music. Like they're some of the founders of Detroit techno.
They're right off the street,
and they're right across
Their
the street from us.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Underground Music Academy is right next door. They're right across the street from us. Moody Man Studios.
The Chroma building's
down
beautiful
the block.
right here.
Yeah,
too.
the Chroma building. But like the history of the neighborhood, they have had tons of musicians, artists. Like there are Afrofuturists that make this neighborhood what it is. So I think like we feel really fortunate to be a part of this community, and certainly hope to to be a positive addition to it.
I've been looking to join this community. I'm in North Corktown. We were in Midtown. We lived in Midtown for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
This is the spot. And I actually have a question. It might be neither, but do you find, like, we just had a Lions game down here, playoff game, does that boost your guys, people coming in on game day, or are you guys more of a theater crowd with Fisher Theater here? Do you find that your business thrives with some of those Detroit events that come on, musicals that come down here, or no, it has no correlation?
Well, all right. So our clientele is all over the place, and I love that. Like, I love having all different kinds of people coming into our space and eating good food together and all that. But there are often events and things that a lot of people in my life assume are really, really good for us that are the opposite.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have TVs in any of our spaces.
No one's coming here to watch a Lions game. I get that, but I vision, there's an event. Hey, we're gonna pop into the Dragonfly or something for a cocktail before. Do you notice that bump, or do you notice that on theater? There's a couple musicals. I know they have all year round, but like, do you notice that, hey, we're doing better when those are happening, or you just have
So chartreuse,
sounds like nothing.
well, chartreuse is like, we'll be busier with certain shows at the Fisher, for example.
But not here.
Here, the dining experience is longer, so it's harder to eat a full 5-course dinner here and then go to a show.
Right.
Okay.
We still certainly get,
Because I would recommend
showgoers. Yeah, I mean, we get almost every weekend. We'll have people that are going to shows.
April, I'll come here and go see the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be that'd be a great day.
Right. So, you know, at Chartreuse, like anytime there's an exhibit at the DIA, we'll get those folks. And depending on, like, when it was the Van Gogh exhibit, or years ago they had a huge Frida Kahlo exhibit. That was a huge boost for our business. But like Saturday, I don't even want to talk about Saturday because it was a very bad result for the Lions. But
we don't want to think
Dude,
about
it's
it.
miserable.
you know, we were busy like a normal Saturday, and then the whole restaurant emptied out at about 8 o'clock when the game started.
Okay.
So, you know.
So it's actually inverse. It's like there's something else going on. You're gonna have
People,
yeah. And like, you know, for the Oakland, for example, like people talk about the Dream Cruise, and I'm like, that is usually we close or are very, very, very slow for things like, you know,
because everyone's out there.
Yeah, people
Everyone's
aren't
outside.
inside.
They're
That's true.
not there to go have a cocktail.
That's
They're
true.
there-
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that makes sense. You would think it would be like a cohesive partnership. Like, we're going to go
Yeah.
down there, stop in, but it's not
I
like
think it's just a couple of those bars that are on Woodward where you can like see the cars, but if you're not on there and you can't see this, no one's going to your place.
But for our new place, you know, for Dirty Shake, we're going to have TVs there, and I'm sure people will be going there to watch games.
And we're definitely going to do
all
this
that.
podcast there in the
Nice.
future.
Nice.
Once we get a platform, we're definitely going to,
Awesome.
you know,
maybe
try
we'll
to return
interview
the
Doug there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that'd be perfect.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be
So, all right, so then Dragonfly next door?
Yep.
Is there a door that connects them?
Just the back, like through the shared kitchen.
Okay.
We wanted to have it have its own entrance, you know, to kind of separate the two concepts.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you know, we want people to be comfortable here and all that, but you know, we just wanted that to be a place where people can just dip in, and, you know, for happy hour or whatever, you know, a nightcap or whatever it is.
That's all. I didn't realize that there's a shared kitchen.
Yeah.
So if I do order a cocktail here, they're going over there.
The
to
servers
get it.
go back there to get it
That's
and bring
awesome.
it over here.
That's pretty unique. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're
No,
just
it's sick.
getting this starting. I don't know if that's a common thing.
You got to come here, man.
Yeah.
I came here, like I said, I came here last week. And actually, let's dive a little into the menu. A lot of questions about that. I thought it was amazing. Food was great. I want to start out by asking you check out this menu.
Yeah, I got it back here.
Menu's right there. What would you order if you're coming here?
I mean, everything looks really good. I mean, the one thing that stuck out to me was the boar ribs. I've never had boar.
Yeah.
And maybe I have. You know, I feel like you order ribs and it's just like, I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what animal it is
Yeah.
sometimes. It's just like, hey, here's ribs. Or I go to someone's house. So maybe
you're
I've
getting
had
the
boar
boar
ribs.
ribs?
Maybe I haven't. I'm assuming you've had them.
Well, I mean, this, honestly, we
the new
don't,
menu?
I've had most of the components of most of these dishes,
Yeah.
but I haven't sat down.
And had all these different things.
I have to look at it.
So when I came here, I had the pierogi, which
Nice.
is, I was surprised you didn't say that.
Well, that was on my list for
Two
sure.
Polish guys here.
Yeah.
Polish guy. I've had a ton of pierogies, so I'm
was
going to go
amazing.
for the boar ribs. Never had them.
The pierogi, so that is one of our more popular dishes.
I asked the hostess. She said the pierogi. Then
Nice.
everyone kept saying the pierogi, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna get that. So we'll start with that. Amazing. It was different because usually we're used to just the potato or the potato
Yeah.
and cheese. So it was
Yeah.
a different take on.
and it's smoked
on it.
whitefish. So
It's got the whitefish in it.
smoked
I've
whitefish.
never had a pierogi with fish in it, and it sounds amazing.
No, it was
Yeah.
nice. And then the duck, that was
Oh.
fantastic. I have to admit, and this is with any fine dining place, I'm always upset because like it come out looking beautiful and you're about to eat it and you're eating the duck crispy skin. It's amazing. And then it comes with bread pudding. You realize that it's most like there's like two pieces of bread pudding and then just the duck. And after you're done eating the duck, you're like, oh shit, I want more. It's
Yeah.
so good. You want to keep eating it, but it's that size. So
Right.
any fine dining place you go to, it's because you usually are courses. You're gonna have this course, this course, this course, and by the end you're filled. But I did the a la carte menu. So,
Right.
That's how that's what it is at a fine dining
Sure.
place. So it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. So what about you?
Well, I mean, like I said, when you were here, like there are a few things that Doug does that I am just obsessed with. And duck is one of those things. You know, anything he does with lamb or short ribs or curry, all of those things are things I always tell people to make sure that they don't miss. But yeah, like you said, like nobody, you know, if I cut into a duck breast and the skin is rubbery, it's disgusting.
Dude, it was perfectly crisp.
So yeah,
like
I think,
come in, if nothing else on this podcast, just come in for the duck. And that leads me to the next question. You got a rotating menu. It feels seasonal. Do you keep anything that's like a bestseller? Like we know this is a staple of Freya you want it to be known for. Is there anything that stays, or are we always changing the menu? Because I thought that was interesting. Your hostess told me, she said, I don't really know because it's always changing. So sometimes you miss some of the good things that are there.
Yeah, it depends on a million different things, and most of them, many of them are not related to like how much we love it, or we think it should sell, or even how much it does sell.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes stuff sells too much, and you know,
what does that even mean?
Well, because we're typically, you know, the vast majority of guests that we have end up doing the 5-course or 9-course dinner. We sell a la carte dishes, obviously, but most of the people know us as a prefix or tasting menu restaurant. Prefix meaning like multi-course, but you get to choose within those courses, or tasting menu meaning like you don't get options, but you taste, you know, what the chef is.
What percentage would you say is the a la carte versus the tasting menu?
A la carte's probably about, I don't know. I haven't looked at those numbers specifically in several months, but it's probably about 5.
So I was really rare air then sitting over there ordering off your menu. It's everyone comes in and they.
Most of the people that come in do that, yeah.
Okay.
It's a la carte's getting a little bit more often, but it's between 5 and 10% probably.
Gotcha.
I mean, speaking of the menu, I saw on there, it said Detroit greens. And that was one thing I wanted to ask you. I was like, what are you doing? Just growing those in your backyard? Like, but there's that farm across the street. Is that where you're getting them?
I don't
Or
think
right
there's...
there.
Well, so we were...
Goes that way?
No, it's right there.
Oh, that's the
greens.
farm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
so,
are Detroit
I mean, we were...
Do you guys use this stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're all over. Like, there's none up front now, but I think there's one in the
Look at
back.
that, fresh greens here.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
They're all-
Yeah, the new ones may
Yeah.
not have come in yet, but yeah,
Nice.
the person on this station literally just takes scissors and snips those off. But yeah, we use several farms in Detroit and all over Southeast Michigan.
That's awesome.
So,
I love that.
you know, one of the things that we do when people sit down is we give them salad and bread, and that's not like a course. It's just like, here,
Welcome.
While you're looking over the menu,
That's cool.
Here's some bread, and you know, we'll bring some salad. And those are always made up of, you know, what we consider to be the best, you know, produce or greens that are grown in the city here.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome. I walked in, I saw these. I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah,
Just
no,
saw
they're literally
decoration.
growing them right here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and you know, like I said, today is Thursday. So yeah, more will be coming in, and over the weekend we'll have probably like 5 or 6 more of those.
That's awesome.
So we have like 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? I could talk all day, but we're on kind of.
I mean, I just love the open concept of the. Is this how you're?
How'd you like the
I've been to
bathroom?
Oakland.
This guy's a bathroom guy. Anywhere we go.
We did a little practice run before this, and I
Yeah,
asked
we did a
about the
practice
bathroom.
shoot, and he said he loves bathrooms.
Yeah,
Yes.
every
Did it
time I go
pass
to a
your
restaurant,
bathroom test?
It's a solid bathroom. It's
All
a
right,
solid
good.
bathroom.
Good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love hearing that, because I will say I hate bathrooms. And I think I understand like really, really, really cool bathrooms, but from my perspective, I don't want people hanging out in the bathroom. I want people out
That's
enjoying
a
the
very.
drinks and all
There are
that. So,
two
a good point.
one-seaters in there.
yeah.
Very. There's no genders to it. That's what you got to
Yeah,
be. That
it's
you go
no
in there, you
genders.
take care of your
I mean,
business.
the only thing I would have said, I was like, maybe you need a little more decorations or something in there,
Right.
but you're doing that on purpose. You
That's
don't want
why.
people hanging out. That
Yeah,
makes
I don't
sense.
people in
like.
there.
It's not like the selfie thing in
Yeah,
bathrooms. Like
yeah,
I get
yeah.
it, but like
Not here, not at
it's,
Freya.
you know, it's hard. Like there, you know, at the end of every meal, you know, we try to. We have the dining experience timed. Like we have it pretty well locked in.
yeah.
Yeah.
We know how long it takes, and we don't give ourselves very much wiggle room. So if there's a group that's like catching up, haven't seen each other in a really long time, sometimes they'll stay longer or whatever. and we just have to figure it out. Obviously, if somebody
They need
has,
to order another bottle of wine if they're staying around to chat.
Well, I mean, not even that. Like whether they stay or not, like, you know, from my perspective, like their reservation, well, I have a reservation at 8:45. None of the tables are open. I got to figure out what we're gonna do.
So we did talk about that a little before, and some of what you were hoping to have here. It's like you said you could shove more tables in here. Obviously, there's room, but you did not want your clients to feel like they're being breathed down their neck or they're bumping shoulders with the person next to them. It is very spacious. It speaks to you want, you know, client focused experience. You're also very staff focused as well. Tell us why you emphasize that over the dollar. Why is that so important to you? Versus, you know, I think you could throw a few more tables in here and you would, you know, maybe have higher revenues. Why is that?
We
important?
could probably double the amount of seats.
Right.
We have.
Yeah.
No, for sure. It definitely has the room.
You know, one of our big inspirations for chartreuse was a restaurant called Avec, which is still there in Chicago. They have multiple ones now. And I literally, every time I go to Chicago, I always go to Avec. It's like one of my favorite places in that city and has been for years. One of my all-time favorite restaurants.
We'll have to go there.
Yeah.
But they have a banquette that goes along the wall of the whole restaurant. It's like one of those, you know, narrow, long spaces. And it's almost like communal seating. The tables are so close together. In fact, you know, there have been times where I've been sitting at a table, my wife has to go to the bathroom and she has to have other people at a different table get up so that she can get out of the table.
Yeah.
And while that works for that restaurant, I'm sure they make a lot more money than we do.
Yeah.
I just didn't want that, you know, and, you know, if people are going to be spending a lot of money at this restaurant, I feel pretty strongly that
it's not overpriced.
It's
here.
a ridiculous value.
I did mention that this is the portion or whatever, but again, this is every fine dining place, and relative to what you'd pay in Chicago, it's like peanuts.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this restaurant in
quality is
Chicago
crazy.
would probably be a minimum of double.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say almost triple.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to be conservative, but in my head was triple.
Yeah.
But yeah, like knowing what goes into all of those costs, you know, and knowing who we want to come here. Like, I don't want this to be, you know, a place where only really, really, really rich people go. And that's why the price is lower. I think we could fill up this restaurant at least 50% more of a cost.
You could scoot an extra table or two, maybe.
I don't know.
You don't have to overdo it.
I love what you do. I think it also brings people back too. Like, I don't want to go to a restaurant that's packed table to table the entire time. Like, I haven't been here yet. Kyle went. Should have came with him. Couldn't come.
But his brother's always moving. Anytime I say, "Hey, man, we got to go scout out another episode," he's like, "My brother's moving
My
again."
brother's moving. Sorry.
Every week,
My
his
brother's
brother's
just constantly moving.
or his grandma's dies every time.
But no, but I feel like, you know, just being here and seeing it, you know, you're at these tables that are spread out. It would make me want to come back. I want that experience again of not being in this stuffy restaurant.
Well, going back to like our experiences at those other places, it's like, you know, if this was packed with people, it would be a very different restaurant. And that restaurant exists here, and there are places that do that and do a really, really good job and have a great following. And I'm close friends with, you know, people involved in those places.
Yeah.
But we just wanted, you know, Doug and I felt like if we're going to go that hard on everything that we feel is really valuable to the guest experience, then this would be disingenuous to just, you know, have double the tables or double the seating or whatever, because, you know, that's something that we didn't like about those places.
Yeah.
You're doing your way.
Yeah.
So that sparked a question I actually had written down was, you are in an area that has some big hitters. The James Beard list just came out for this year. The Bobo Fairs down the street. You are connected to Oak and Real.
Yeah.
How is that relationship? Is it cohesive? Is it competitive? You know, you're a leader in those names, and how's that relationship?
I really hate
them. He hates them.
So I hate all of them.
hate them.
I am a very, very competitive person, and I think as I've grown and as the years have gone by, I think that's become a little bit less, or I've gotten a better perspective about it or whatever. I used to be incredibly competitive with everybody all the time. I think now I really hate the idea of thinking of any other Detroit independent restaurant as competition.
Yeah.
The restaurant industry and the community here is very, very, very close and tight knit. So Mamba is one of my best friends. He runs Bob Fair.
Hey, I reached out to him to get an episode. So if you could actually,
I'll
give me the
over
inside,
for you,
he's
yeah.
ignoring me. So,
So
he's
he's-
not my best friend. He doesn't give a shit about me.
To be fair, he's opening 2 places right now.
he's got a
Trust me,
lot
I've read
going
about
on.
every
Yeah.
place. I've obviously reached out to the places that we like to go to, or the places I go, that looks awesome. Like this was a place I go, that looks awesome, and any place I go to, I want to be a client
And,
of as well.
Like we firmly feel like the rising tide, raises all boats or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
And we have a great relationship with our neighbors on this side, and we share a dumpster,
Yeah.
and everybody. I would like to think everybody roots for each other here.
Yeah.
I will say, like, Doug finally got his James Beard semifinalist nomination
Yeah, I
last
saw
year.
that. The Great Lakes.
Yeah. So I felt like he deserved that a long time before he
100%.
got it. But we don't really. I don't know. Like,
And there's no Michelin in Michigan, I was reading. That's
correct.
great.
We're
So-
hoping
didn't
that
know
they're
that.
going to be here
All right,
next
we're
year.
going to be a podcast that tries to get that thing to happen, maybe be a voice of that. I think that would be a good purpose for us.
Well, so
do people want that, I guess? I mean, I read a little bit, maybe people, don't aspire to that as much, and they know that James Beard still has that great validation to your restaurant, but for me, I watch Chef's Table all the time, and you
Sure.
hear about the Michelin star, so I'm not too familiar because I'm not from the industry.
Right. So Michelin, is a guide that started in Europe, in France.
With the tire company, by
Right.
the way. It is the tire company. That.
I learned that later in life.
Yeah.
I definitely
Yeah.
thought it was 2 different things.
Yeah. So it was like, back in the day, it was like a guide for people who were traveling by car and which restaurants that they should stop in, which hotels they should stay at, and so on, and which attractions they should see. So this year in 25, they actually did come to Detroit, and it's, they have an attraction version of it and a hotel and restaurant version of it. So the hotel and restaurant version usually follows the attraction one. So
It's
we're
coming.
hoping that next year
It's
they'll
coming.
be here.
Yeah.
I mean, we know, we as Detroiters know what's going on in Detroit. Again, I always say Detroit's not a place that hits you in the face like New York, but it's a place if you know where you're going or you know somebody that knows, you're going to have a top-notch, excellent experience here. And this includes this place as well.
No question.
Freya.
I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I've also lived in Philadelphia, like I mentioned, Chicago, and San Francisco. And those are some pretty major markets. And each time I lived in those areas, I missed the food from home. And, I think cuisines from all over the world, there's no question in my mind that the best Middle Eastern food, Lebanese, any kind of Middle Eastern food in
Here.
the Detroit area or Dearborn is like, it doesn't touch
Yeah, I was in-
the best that they have in
I was in
other
Paris,
places.
and they're like, you got to go to this falafel place. You got to
Yeah.
go to this place. So we went, you go out of your way, take your shit and go. And then you go and you're like, this is on every corner.
Yes.
Dearborn.
Yes.
You're like,
Yeah.
sorry, buddy, the line doesn't need to be an hour long. You can go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
it just depends, who the people are and what's the makeup of that city
Yeah.
that
Right.
really defines the cuisine of the
And you
area.
could say that about Polish food here,
Yeah,
Mexican
the ham shrimp,
food,
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Indian
100%.
food, like all of that. Thai, there are so many great places in Detroit. And,
Yeah.
I think just because of the stupid, just dumb jokes throughout the 70s and 80s and 90s and,
Yeah.
all of that in the national, like, whatever, has kind of kept people from knowing that. It seems like now it's kind of out of the bag.
Well, it's turning, and you bring up a great point, and we want to be a voice for that as well. I feel like every time you talk about Detroit, everyone is, we're so blue collar, we're so hardworking. You're like, okay, and like there's another story to it, right? There's another purpose, and we want to be that voice of the fine dining, of the beautiful art, of all those things. There's another story as well. So we hope to continue to be that voice and visit places and have conversations of those untold stories. So I know we're wrapping up. It's 12:30 right now. You kind of have a hard stop right now. Do you want?
we're
I
probably
do
should
have
kick
to
off.
bounce pretty soon.
Yeah,
but
no, and so do I. I got a flight to catch.
I got one
But-
question
yeah.
before we get going. Out of all your restaurants, any famous people, or who's the most famous person?
I don't do that.
You don't tell who your
like you
clientele.
don't tell, or you won't.
This is funny that you bring this up because there was
Jared Goff came after the loss.
There was a very famous person that was here
He didn't-
this past Saturday.
Okay.
After was it from the Lions?
No. No, God, no. They were
Well, there's no way.
No,
That was the game was Saturday.
no.
right?
I thought you meant they came late night or something. But
No.
then again,
They
you guys
came
are
here for
closed
dinner
at
on
what, 10?
Saturday. And
It was Dak Shepard.
It was not Dak Shepard.
Kristen Bell.
But listen,
Keegan Michael
we
Beal, or
have,
whatever his
yes,
name
we
is.
have we have taken care of many famous people, and
So-
at lineup, and every time that we have one coming in, the first thing that we talk about is like, if you want to be if we want to be considered a restaurant that people who are famous want to go to, then you don't tell people.
All right, we're gonna
I
edit
agree.
this out, Ace. We're gonna
No,
bleep
we
out
didn't
the
say the
name.
name.
No,
We didn't say the name.
no. He's gonna tell us the name right now.
Oh,
Who was
we'll
it?
do
Who
it
was
off
it?
cam.
I'm not.
We'll do
No,
it
he's
off
not
cam.
gonna say.
But
because people will post
No, we're
about
not
it.
rolling
I'm not saying you guys, but like
No, I know.
if
You
you
don't
post
even
about
know
it,
who it
or
was.
if you just tell somebody,
Right.
it's going to get out, and they're
For
not going to
sure.
feel comfortable here. So
They want
what-
it to be a space where they
100%.
cannot have a camera poked up in their face.
Yeah,
They don't
want
wanna
people
advertise.
walking.
You hear
up
that,
to them for
celebrities of
autographs
Detroit?
or
That's what we're
selfies
here
or whatever,
for.
yeah.
We're tagging all the celebrities. Come here.
The thing that I was taught, and this was when I did a stage at a restaurant called Avenues in Chicago, that at the time was like, it was in a hotel that was like $700-800 a night, and celebrities were there all the time. I will say, when I was staging at this restaurant, staging
What-
is like,
yeah, what's staging?
it's basically you come and do a practice, like a follow shadow shift.
Okay.
And it typically is in fine dining circles, usually in the back of the house, where it could be a day or it could be 3 months.
If we're
where
staging,
you work for free,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
If we were staging,
Yeah.
what jobs could you give us if we wanted to come in and we're gonna wrap this
You could follow
podcast?
somebody in.
You can give us any job here?
Yeah, most
Dishwasher?
I mean, you're not really working a job.
Dish pit?
You're shadowing somebody. So
What,
you're just
what would you
following
put
them
us
around.
on? Just knowing us for this
here's the
45
thing,
minutes.
I mean, I'm
Zero
front of the house,
service
so
injury
you'd
experience.
probably be following a server or maybe the expo or a server
No,
assistant.
I'd be an
Put me in the
amazing
dish pit.
server.
I want the dish pit.
I just
Yeah.
don't know your product, but I would be amazing. I'd be really nice. I would, pour a glass of wine, be conversational, but maybe they don't like that. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But so I would be front of the house shadowing or back of the house.
I mean, you could probably do either. If you did back of the house, I would just put you in touch with Doug or Cole, who was our chef.
okay, you got a job here. So if you ever
locked
lose
in.
your
Yeah.
job or, if this doesn't take
Yeah,
off,
I'll be
we'll
calling
come
you.
here.
I'll be calling you.
So, Sandy, we really appreciate it.
Thank
I
you
don't
so
want to keep
much.
it any much longer. We're going to, what's it called? The Dirty Shake. That's
Yeah.
going to be opening?
Dirty Shake.
Dirty Shake.
Okay, so we're going to do a show once we have a platform, and hopefully we can, do a little bit of marketing piece for there as well. We lived in off 3rd Street in Midtown, so it's right a street
nice, yeah.
over, and we'll be clients there. Maybe during all Tigers baseball season and stuff, we'll come
Yeah.
down, we'll say hi. But everyone come to Freya. It's fantastic food. We appreciate you being our first episode. We hope to be a voice for Detroit, as we said, a voice for the untold story, and really get behind the scenes of all the different places. So if you could connect us with anybody that you know here, that'd be great.
Cool.
We want to go to coffee shops, cocktails, fine dining, casual dining, but they're going to be places that we also want to go. We're not just going to go to any old place in Detroit. Freya is certainly not any old place. So
Yeah.
we appreciate
Thank
the
you.
time. We'll talk again. Shane, thank you very much. Ace back there, thank you very much. And that's it.
They say my generation full of dough. We tell them thanks, this is our year. But on the real, they saying slow your roll. As if we don't, we gonna die, but we like it. They don't know what life is. My homie, if he heading to the party, we like it. And that poison be pricey, and they gon' get you hyphy. But if you ain't throwing